that time. And it was a test where the nation of the Amalekites, an ancient foe of Israel, God gave him the message to go and completely annihilated that entire group of people. Every single one, all the cattle, every single thing. This is Samuel's direct order from God to Saul was to destroy this enemy completely. Well, there's a message right there. Because there are some things in our lives that when we have the opportunity, we got to kill it. Because if we don't kill some things once and for all, the same thing that was spared will come back to hurt us down the road.
Yes, yes.
And so God told Saul to completely destroy the enemy. This included all the people, every animal, all the animal, everything that they own. And in 1 Samuel 15:7-8, Saul slaughtered the Amalekites. And he captured Agag, the king. But he destroyed everything else, everyone else. But he spared the life of the king. And along with sparing the life of the king, he also secured the best of the sheep and the cattle and the fat calves and the lamb. So he took out the best things along with the king and he spared them. You see, God's response to Saul's action came in verse number 10. The Lord said to Samuel rather, I am sorry that I ever made King Saul king.
Yes.
Because he has stopped following after me and he has now disobeyed my command. And so, we know the story. Samuel went to Saul, to meet Saul. And the thing is, if you look at verse number 13, Brother Watson, when Samuel got to Saul, before Samuel could say anything at all to Saul, Saul opened up his mouth when he saw the man of God. And he says, my Lord, bless you. I have obeyed the Lord's command. Before the man of God asked him any question, you see, his conscience was, yes, speaking, because he knew. I don't know about you, but I remember those days, man. You got to be very careful when you come into the house of the Lord.
Amen. Amen.
Anybody remember those days? Listen, I'm from the old school. I'm from the old school, man.
That's right.
I remember, man, when you're going into God's house, you better make sure you're right.
Tell you.
Because like, if you're not right, there are a few mothers there, man. They'll jump around you. Yeah? Anybody know what I'm talking about here?
Hey, talk about it.
Oh, they'll just pull you from the seat, man. Before you can say anything. But I believe Saul understood the spirit that's in this man, in the prophet. And he opened his mouth and said, I have done this. Without even Samuel asking anything. And then watch this. Saul says, but Samuel said, then why do I hear the mooing and the sheep bleating? Why do I hear the sound? Why do I hear like cows and cattle and sheep if you kill everything? You see, Saul tried to make excuses here. But the problem is that, you see, there's some folks that God gives a command, and their mouth is saying something totally different from their action.
That's right.
They're saying, Lord, I've done this, but their life totally is in opposition to what they say. Anybody hear me in this place here today? Saul said, I've killed everything. But if you've killed everything, then I'm hearing some sounds. You see, I'm not necessarily seeing some things, but I'm hearing some sounds. And so we got to be very careful sometimes. Even as we come before God and we say we have done this and we have lived this type of life, and we must understand this. I'm going somewhere to text. I won't be long before you today. I'm getting to my point. But we must understand that if we're going to say one thing, then our life must match up to what we say. Anybody in the house here today? The Lord didn't tell Saul to spare anything. But the excuse Saul made was that, listen, I've saved the cattle and some sheep for sacrifice. Listen, it sounded good. But it was not God's thing. So everything that sounds good is not necessarily a God thing. So he said, no, I've spared these cattle because I know I'm going to offer sacrifice. But in this particular case, God did not say spare the sheep for the sacrifice. Kill it. But I want to make a point right here. I want to make a point right here. That's very important. That obedience, the word says, is far more pleasing to God than sacrifice. And understand that God wasn't saying we're not supposed to make sacrifices, see. But listen carefully, because this is very important. Or you see, our pious and ritualistic observance, no matter what it is, it means nothing if we are not living a life of obedience. We can say, I'm offering everything. But if we're not obeying God, then we're simply going through the motions.
Yeah.
Are you still with me here today? Yes. So we must understand that our pious observance must be consistent with our lifestyle and what God says. God was not condemning sacrifices, but the sacrifice meant nothing to God because of Saul's obedience. Preacher, what are you saying? I am saying that we got up early this morning. We left out when it was still dark, coming to church. Some brought tithes and some brought offering. Some folks didn't even eat breakfast. Got here very early. But the truth is, everything that we have done and are doing, it means nothing if our life doesn't match up to what God says.
Amen.
All the sacrifices that we make, it means nothing if we're not walking in obedience. My friend, if you come to church, every service, Bible study, prayer, meeting, give all your monies to the church. Whereas all these things look spiritual. But if you do not turn your heart fully and your life totally over to God in obedience, then these things don't mean much at all. Saul's punishment was he would be dethroned because of his disobedience. Samuel is now upset that his first king has failed miserably. That's why now in our text in chapter 16, if you go from verse number 1 there, we see God now, and I'm at that text now, God speaking to Samuel in verse number 1, and he asked him this question: how long will you mourn for Saul, since I've rejected him as king over Israel? I am now sending you to Jesse's house in Bethlehem because I have chosen one of his sons to be king. This time God is going to choose a man on his terms. It's good to get an appointment from man, but assignment comes from God. And you don't miss this, you see. We might not get the appointment that we're looking for, talking to somebody here today. I hear Reverend Hillman start preaching that message when they came. He said, Samuel goes to Jesse's house and he begins to look all over his sons. And the first son came through the door. And he takes a look at Eliab, the oldest. And when he looked at the oldest son, immediately, Brother Watson, immediately, Samuel says, now this must be the one.
Yes, man. Kind well spoken.
This must be the one.
Mm-hmm.
It fits the bill. It's the oldest. But then, surely the Lord's, this says the verse, surely the Lord's must anoint him. Because this first son impressed Samuel.
That's right.
You see, a lot of time we get our appointment by how we learn how to impress. I'm going somewhere with this today. You see, we get our appointment by man because we know how to do the politicking and how to make certain impression. And so we get our appointments. But you don't get your assignment like that, you see. I'm lifting here somebody.
What a word.
So Samuel looked at the eldest son and said, this must be the one. And he took the oil and tried to pour it, but the oil wouldn't pour. You see, you have the appointment, but you don't have the anointing.
That's right. Come on.
And so I come out to tell someone, you don't worry about the appointment. They might overlook you on the job. Come here. But you're assigned. Come here. Okay. You're appointed. You're anointed. You're assigned to task. Oh, glory to God. So even though the man of God, the prophet, I'm just trying to preach the text here. And I've learned something that even though we are men of God, sometimes we miss it.
Come on, preacher. Come on. Come on, preacher.
Well, I'm just talking the text here. I'm talking about it. I know,
My God.
you know, as a person in leadership, I know sometimes I miss it because of what you see. Something, and so the oil could not flow. and then Jesse paraded all his sons to pass by Samuel.
Jesus.
Those with great physical stature. It's funny because Samuel really wanted to anoint him immediately. He wanted to do it immediately. This must be him. But God says in Samuel, verse number 7, but the Lord said to Samuel, look not at his countenance or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. The Lord seeth not as man seeth. For man looking at the outward appearance, but God looking at the heart. My God, I come back to tell somebody, you better get your heart right, because that's what counts. When your heart is right. I was talking, it's funny, I was preaching this text to a minister we met yesterday. I was sat down and I was just preaching. Just one person. and one of the things that I was saying, even as I looked at this text here, how important